I'm Maddie Young or Madison. Sometimes it pops up, but I'm mostly an assistant art director. That's what I'm going after currently. I have art directed a show, but right now an assistant.
You seem pretty young. That's a kind of it looks like you raced ahead of the crowd somehow.
I think yes, and also I luckily I had I think a good foundation. I started theater design in high school, and then from there went to college for theater design, primarily lighting design, but then in college, they treated it like a liberal arts plus a conservatory. So, while most of my classes were based within design, I got to kind of go where I wanted to. So a large majority was lighting, but then I started getting into set design and prop design, and props graphics. So enjoyed my time with set designing and prop designing. And then I went out to LA for about 6 months through Emerson, which is what I went to.
Mhm.
And I worked for two production designers in LA who did mostly multi-camera sitcoms and live televised events. John Schaffner and Joe Stewart. They're both lovely people. I love them forever. And I got to work with really cool art directors too. Tina Miller is one of my favorite. But worked there, then went back to the East Coast, worked in theater, and then actually right after the pandemic kind of hit and then kind of came down, television and film came back a lot faster than theater did. So I kind of decided to make the switch and uh art department assisted for a bit, and then Tina from LA gave me my um first chance at an assistant art director role, which was really great. So, and I also got really lucky too when I first started working in film that the production designer that I worked with, Michael Stone, who is the ADG 800 rep for New England, was actually my production designer on my first film. And he was like, "You like to do this?" And I was like, "I do." And he was like, "Oh my gosh." So, he was a really good like foundation for figuring out like, oh, like what are the steps I need to do in order to kind of like A, make a career out of this, and B, how to like move forward and choose things that will help me then get to that level. So I've been extremely lucky with mentors.
You
That's
seem
great.
like you're kind of a pretty driven person. You
Yeah.
seem like you're responsible and driven. Has that played a big role in your success?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people that I talk to, one of the best advice I was ever given in just like being a young designer slash just freelancer was from my lighting professor, Scott Pinkney. And I was taking one of his business for designer classes in college, and he was like, exhaust your resources. He's like, cold email, cold call if that's like something that you know that will be okay. But he's like, just reach out to people because more than not, people are gonna, even if they don't necessarily have a job for you, it's good just to get your name out there. So I don't wait for somebody to get a hold of me. I get a hold of them. Um, and whether or not that turns into something great, if not, they have my resume, they have my contact information if they end up ever A, needing somebody in New England, or B, needing somebody to travel. I just make sure that like I kind of go after the things that interest me, because like I'll watch movies and I'll be like, okay, well, who was that art department team? Like there, that was cool, like I would love to work with them, and I'll research art department teams that I think would be awesome to work on.
Was that an internship that you got to go and join those production designers in Los Angeles, or was that after? I'm just trying to help students understand,
Oh
like,
no, you're good.
even at school, you should begin doing the navigation and the research to figure out where your angle is to get
Yeah,
in.
totally. So for the production design, it was an internship through, well, so it was technically, I got credit through the college. The whole point of doing the LA program at Emerson was to get an internship. That was like, you took some classes there, but it was like maybe 6 credits, maybe 3 classes I think I took. And then the rest was internship. And so I was also extremely lucky in that, my set designer professor at Emerson, Tim Joswick, he went to Carnegie Mellon both with Joe and John. And so he had like just like a personal relationship with them. And then the head of the television program within Emerson, she also had a good working relationship with them because they were mentors on Emerson has the largest student-run televised award show in the nation. I think that still holds. But they do like mentoring on it for the set designers who are designing it. So luckily there were some good connections with them and I was able to get a hold of them and then be like, do you want an intern? So, which was really great because I was taking a production design class with Suzanne Feller Otto in LA, and she was really excited that I was working with them and that I had an internship that was like directly correlated with something that I wanted to be doing. Because sometimes it can be difficult. Internships, especially when you don't know the area, you're kind of like new to the area and you're just trying to figure things out. Like I know a lot of my friends had some great internships, but it wasn't necessarily in the field that they wanted to be in. So I was really happy that I was able to land that, but also not to say that like I didn't push for it. Like I made sure like I got all of the information I needed. I like went after it. Like I checked in with them. I always follow up. If you want to go like sports, like I played soccer for forever and the one thing that I take away into my real life is you always follow up. Like and even that's even if the relationship is like coming to an end, you follow up and you say thank you. Like it's always about follow up, no matter what. I found that like it's like it's better. It's just a good practice, no matter what. Like I've never had it bite me because people just appreciate it, and I appreciate it when people follow up with me. So it's like I would want the same. So.
Now, I'm not an art director and never will be one, but I'm curious if you bring your own style to a project, or do you just determine what they're looking for and create the style in their vision?
I think it depends on, I think it goes project by project. I think it also depends on um who the production designer is. It's if you've worked with them before, if you have an established relationship. Um Ultimately you're trying to create that production designer's vision, and so it's like you adapt their design styles. I would say I know from like other art directors that I've talked to who are more seasoned, who are have really long-term working relationship with certain production designers, they're usually able to kind of like input their design style more into it because they have that relationship. I would say as an assistant, um a lot of my design styles come down to paperwork sometimes. I'm like, this is how I'm going to present my paperwork. And like when I am asked design questions of like paint or style or something like that, you have to put yourself more in the world that's already being created and making sure it's fluid throughout. Because it's like you don't want the one thing that you touch to be like a sore thumb, because in my opinion is like obviously good production design, you're going to talk about it no matter what, but then at the same time you want it to be seamless, you want it to be like almost like you're just like that's a normal room, like people live there, that's not a TV set, that's not a movie set, like this is a real thing. So yeah, I would say especially as an assistant, my design flares usually just come out in like presentation of good paperwork.
So can you like name a couple of films that you didn't work on but really blew you away or inspired you in some way?
Um, so so one of the films that I came, and actually it was the first film that I saw after like the one that I was finally comfortable with going inside of the theater and watching was The Menu. And even though it's like it's only a couple locations, it's not very many locations. The main location is the kitchen and dining area. I got out of that and I was like, oh my God, like that was so good. And it wasn't just because like the film itself was good. I was just like everything looked so natural, but also like it was so well thought out that I was like, I was like hands down, like uh I had just such a great time. Like they could have turned the sound off and I could have had just a great time like just watching it. Um and I would say probably like if we want to go like throwback, I think a classic movie in my opinion is Practical Magic. I love Practical Magic and purely because I love like the house design is so iconic, but fits so well. You find out that they shot it in Washington State, but then everybody thinks it's the East Coast, and you're like, no, that was the West Coast, baby. Um, so it's kind of stuff like that. I also grew up watching movies, and I'm blanking on her name right now, and I feel so bad, but she did like Something's Gotta Give. Oh, I'll have to. Oh, this is gonna kill me because I don't remember it, but she creates these houses that are just like so well done that I was like, that I want to live there. Like these are things that I love and I love to see. And half the time it's because they're just so natural. It doesn't feel like a movie set. Cause that's one of my biggest like I'm always like, oh, this feels like a movie set. I'm like, I was like, it looks good, but it just something's off.
It's true, Eric. See, she's speaking my language. Like an art, when you're in this world of a movie, the production design, the set decorating, all of the textures that we see, that you watch that movie, and you never, the most viewers, unless you're a crazy art person like us, they're just enveloped. They are enveloped in that world, and that they're accepting it all, and and they don't even realize the layers and layers that went into those rooms. I mean, the detail. That's like, yeah, I could go on about that. Pritzi's Honor, like Pritzi's Honor. I don't even know. I don't remember the production designer, but that film for me was that. I was like, oh my God, they used the Starburst, dishes from 1957. Oh my God. Like
Yeah.
it was that for me, where all these little details that added all up to this amazing moment that, you know, that you, it sparked something for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the spark of, wait, how do they do that? Who gets to do that? Wait, what is that job?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what is there anything, I'm kind of jumping around, but when you first started working as an assistant, did you know what you were, you just like, I don't know what I want to do in this world, or you already knew, like after
Um,
doing the internship, or you were just like, I'm going to take it all in, and what was your thinking or approach?
Well, after my internship, I was like, okay, I actually really enjoyed that because a lot of the work I had done for Joe and John was like obviously assisting the art directors and what they needed for the upcoming shows, but then also it was like white models. I wasn't drafting necessarily, but I was like kind of like looking over draftings and just like reading them, looking at them, seeing how like people were putting notes down and kind of like understanding their workflow. And I actually really enjoyed it. It was besides being in like a school setting, it was one of the first times that I got to kind of be in that world, which was really great. And was never tired of it. Like even if it was a long day at the office, I was like, I want to come back tomorrow. Like, I want to be here again. Like, I'm not tired of being here, which is always like a really big thing. Because obviously, every job has its ups and downs, but as long as you want to keep on showing up, then there's no getting rid of it. So from there, when I went back to theater, I did mostly props. And then I realized when I wanted to break back in kind of to more film rather than television series, I was like, I'll start at the I'll just start in at the ground level. Like I was like, I'll be an art department assistant. I'll see how like an art department runs. Um, and I was lucky enough to work with Michael on my first one on About Fate, and then from there I moved to I Want to Dance with Somebody, and also got really lucky with David Offner as my art director, who was super awesome, great mentor, wonderful at SketchUp. So like I got time to also practice like 3D modeling on my own time, and he would give me like pointers. And then kind of like watching what all the other assistant art directors did and figuring out like where my skill sets were and like what I could definitely build upon. So from there, like taking a lot of like 3D rendering classes, getting better at my set drawing. Um, and then also just like, because like an assistant art director, sometimes you kind of have to come in and you sometimes don't know what you're going to expect. I found like sometimes they're gonna need it's gonna be like a scavenger hunt for like hardware. Like I worked on one show that was like it was just hardware. Like that's all we did. At least that for my assistant and me as an assistant and the art director. Like that's all that really like it was like hardware and like paint and wallpaper and all of this kind of tracking. And so which I actually really enjoy. I find that I like the small details of things. And also working with construction. So I think going off on a tangent and then coming back around, watching art departments, watching what people were doing, I just figured out like A, what I was good at, B, what I needed to work on. And then from there, uh developed those skills until like I was comfortable enough when it actually worked out perfectly when I worked for Tina out in Las Vegas, um, those skills came in and I was like, okay, like I'm like ready for this next step. I'm like ready to roll. Like I think I'm comfortable in stepping up. And that's why I tell a lot of the art directors that I work with, I was like, I'm okay with being an assistant for a bit. Like I'm happy where I am. I know what I need to grow on. I know what I want to work on. And like I'm gonna keep on rolling with it.
And do you think that you're like, I'm just curious. I feel like art directing in the art department, no matter what you do, there's a level of patience that you have to have. And I'm curious, like, do you have like you obviously have that. I know you do because I haven't worked with you. But you have a really wonderful, I don't know what the word is, like you're able to roll with it, right? Like because our world it's a problem, the whole thing's a problem that we have to solve,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so some people don't, and I just want you to speak on that for a student because I think it's a huge thing that you have to understand the train's moving and you've got to do your job, stay on it and be calm.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of it's like I was telling Eric earlier when we were talking about that construction coordinator. I was like, I feel like it's two ends of the spectrum. You get like surfer dude, super chill, very mellow, and then you get some people who are I'm like, you need a vacation. Like, please just take a day. Like it is like we're gonna figure it out. I think it's definitely I don't it's one of those things where it's like you never want to be like overly optimistic where you overpromise and underdeliver because that's never a situation that you want to be in. But for me personally, it's maybe it's working in live shows was my foundation because I worked with a stage manager where one time we missed a cue and she was like, you can't focus on that. She's like, you have to move forward because the show's going to keep on going and you can't be 2 steps behind. You figure out how to get 2 steps ahead because it's going to keep on going without you and you have to figure it out and there's nothing you can do about it now. So just she was like, in lack of a better term, she was like, just get over it and move. And I was like, cool, awesome, I love this. So I kind of like remind myself that like yes, like it can be a stressful situation, it totally can, but as long as it's like you're moving, you're communicating. I call myself an over communicator, but at the same time, if everybody's on the same page, then I'm doing my job correctly. Like I even want I want the PA on in paint to know what's going on because if they know what's going on, everybody knows what's going on. And that's great. And everybody's on the same page. So for me, it's just I don't know. Actually, I also look at it like a spiral, especially when like a lot of things are happening at once and you need to take on a lot of things. It's like you have your main thing and then you start moving through the spiral. Not everything's coming at you at once, but you still have to get through the spiral of it all. So it's just like you have to prioritize. You have your time management has to be good. Uh, but yeah, it's one of those things where you definitely develop I would say, getting cooler as you get older and like working through it. Because at first you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna give myself a heart attack. And then you're like, oh, I've done this. I've been through this. Like, it'll be fine. Like, even if it's not in the way that we thought it was gonna be, it's going to work because you have faith in your team that A, your team's gonna back you up, but B, also that your team is capable of shifting if need be. So it's very team sports.
That's true. That's true. I think everything you're saying is spot on. I'm just curious, and I'm also curious you are when you were starting out, like, do you have something to, somebody who's just dreaming of getting into this department that you're now in? Like, is there something that you're like, heads up, I know a few things that I wish I had known, or I'm glad I did know when I
Um,
ventured in.
s- I guess like one thing like I was glad I knew was that most of the time, like you hear horror stories of like working in like film and television and stuff like that. I feel like almost every single art department, if not every single art department I've been on, have been they've been people and they treat you like a human and you're like, hey, I have to go for a doctor's appointment, and they're like, that's okay. So like going into it knowing that like I could still function as a human and not just like every waking moment was my job. Like I had to like be like, oh, I can't go get my doctor's appointment because I have to go make 4 copies of a script today. Like they get it, and you can ask for that time off if you need it, especially when you are entering in. It can happen. Um, the other thing that I think is helpful is, even though I don't use Facebook that much, New England has a Facebook group for local PAs and people who want to like break into the film commercial TV scene around here. That's how I met Michael. Michael had posted a post saying like, "Hey, I'm looking for an art department PA for my film." I sent him my resume and he got back to me, I think like the next day or even that day. And that's how the ball started rolling for me. So it was like nothing is off limits. Like check Facebook, check like even like Google Forms, like Google Groups or whatever. Uh, like there's usually a community that is out there. You just have to you have to find it. Unless you know about it, you have to find it. And like neither of my parents are in in this industry. My mom's a teacher and my dad's a UPS driver. So I guess technically my dad's a teamster, but not in the way that film teamsters. So really it was kind of it was making friends, getting familiar with people who were working in it. I got lucky enough too, going to Emerson, a large film school. One of my good friends was working in she was a set deck coordinator. And so she was also like, hey, you should look at this like Facebook page. You should like sign up for this. You should look into this. So she was also very helpful. I even think like I said before, cold emailing people, like finding shows, TV shows, movies, people who you like their work, um, email them. Because most of the time, even if they don't obviously have a job for you, like I've had a couple people email me and I'm like, hey, like I'm out on the East Coast, but I have LA contacts and I've got them in touch with my LA contacts because I'm like, this is somebody who wants to work in the art department if you're ever looking for a production assistant or anything like that. Because more likely than not, usually people are pretty chill. And if they don't email you back, they don't email you back on to the next. So I think, yeah, just cold email too. That's how I roll.
Yeah.
How are your thoughts? Because you're so good about, taking classes and, brushing up on technologies that you need to know now. And, obviously the big AI scare that everybody has, that really, it's like a whole new opportunity is how I look at it. But what are your thoughts, or what are you looking into learning about right now?
I mean, like our industry, really any industry, in my opinion, is like it's always going to evolve, it's always going to change. So staying on top of like what's current, what's going on, and because like I know plenty of people who still hand draft, are hired to hand draft. Their work is gorgeous and their work is needed. And like but they've done things that still makes their work relevant even though they hand draft and they don't digital draft. So it's like it's not like you have to take this giant like 180 and change everything you've ever known about your workflow, but you do need to make tweaks in order so that you know that you're still running next to everybody else. And that looks different for everybody, but for me personally, it's a lot of the things that I've been, especially in my downtime, I take a lot of classes that like I want to know more about, I want to build upon. Like I just took through contract services through 800, I just took this wonderful like perspective drawing class for like quick like architecture drawings. Because it's like, yeah, I can digital draft, I know some hand drafting, but I definitely want to get better at like quick sketching like buildings or quick sketching ideas, because sometimes I'm not the best at describing about what I need. I am such a visual person. Like I'm one of those people that I was like, where's pencil and paper? I will draw this. Like that is how I communicate best. And that's how I know I communicate best. So it's like I know that I want to be able to be like, oh, let me just sketch this out really quick and just show you what I'm talking about. Because more than not, my words, everybody's like, what just came out of your mouth? And I'm like, okay, hold on, I have to draw this because it's not gonna work either way. But yeah, it's just keeping up on technologies. I also think in terms of like AI, it'll be interesting. Um I think that I'll be curious to see how databases are built, because there are a lot of there's AI, there's been AI in like certain facets of everyday life of like Photoshop and stuff like that, but that was always like you're adding like a film grain to something, like a filter or something like that in a way. So I'll be curious to see how like maybe if somebody like can create their own system off their own artwork and generate stuff that way. But I know it's right now because it's like certain AI like conglomerates, if you will. Right now it's all like a lot of it is stolen art. And so like a lot of I just worked for Disney for 20th Century Fox, and like they had a whole thing being like you like they're like, we don't do it, like you can't do it, you can't do any work with it, we will not accept it, like it's a no. Which I appreciated, but I think like it'll take time and a lot of effort, and just like finding an ethical way to use it without like essentially hurting anybody's jobs, or like the people who are um like, because like within 800 you have your set designers, your illustrators, your art directors, all that fun stuff. How the illustrators and graphic artists will primarily be the ones to either implement it or not. I know like everybody has the really strong opinions, and I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. But it'll just be interesting to see. I definitely think it'll be a tool, but it's depending on how we get to that tool will be interesting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm grateful to hear that actually from somebody, I'm on the other end of the spectrum of having worked for, 28 years in this world. So it's good to hear that, because I think I agree with everything you said about it. And I think it's key to just keep learning as you go.
Yeah. You
So,
have to. That's how you stay just you don't even have to be like the number one in your field, but that's just how you stay good. Like in my opinion, that's how you stay just with everything. Also, it's like boring not to learn. I was always one of those kids that I like school. Like I had a good time in school. But in the subjects that I enjoyed. So it's kind of nice where I'm still kind of like in school, but I'm only taking the subjects that I enjoy. And obviously there are certain things that like I'm also working on that I don't enjoy as much, but I know it's very it's very important for my job. Like I've been doing the budgeting seminars that 800's been putting together. They did like it's like 20 parts or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I know that's where I need to build, so I'm gonna watch these budgeting classes. I'm gonna take from these people who have budgeted huge shows that I could not even fathom right now. So it's definitely you do have to though be an adult and you're like, okay, I gotta take this class that I might not be excited for, but I'm gonna be excited for it.
That is a wonderful attitude
Yeah.
that we all should have,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the 20-part budgeting class that I too have started and
Yeah.
have not really gotten into. I haven't turned the corner on it, but I'm like, I want to see
Yeah.
how they do it. I've never worked on things that giant, never. So
And I feel like too, like TV and like especially like theater and television, they go hand in hand in so many ways. And in a lot of ways too, like yes, you can go to school for it. And I think like people are obviously becoming better designers, better craftspeople, like going to school for it. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't gone to school for it. But I think also a really important thing too, like from your teachers is like is like verbal, like word of mouth, is experiences, is hearing people's experiences, learning from them. They're like, learn from my mistakes, please. Which is I always think is a really great attitude to have and something that I found that's popped up in a lot of like film world and theater world is like, I made this, I did this is how it worked out for me. Do with it what you will. So in something I've always appreciated is just like is the passing down of knowledge because we're the only way that these will continue is if we pass down knowledge. There's no other way. Like you have to like it's that's just also humankind. You pass down what you know so that the next generation can keep it going.